So altcoins have just bounced off that level we mapped out on yesterday's video. But is this the proper rotation into a little bit of a relief, finally? Or just another brutal, cruel tease that Bitcoin dominance will go down a little bit and then probably shoot up even higher? I want to break it down in terms of the charts. I want to talk about the news and what is actually happening underneath the hood. But we do have to be very, very mindful. It is still July. We could have low volume pumps here. So try not to get overexcited. Wait for some confirmations. And hit the like button if you are emotionally recovering from the previous last fake out. And let's see if this one's different. Now, huge respect if you caught any of these lows, and that probably would have been quite hard, but I still think we are not out the woods yet. Do not run away just yet. We need to talk about it. Because as much as I talked about in yesterday's video that we are coming down to others.d and some key levels around those points, we are going to see low liquidity and potential any sort of given pump that could happen would be quite big, because that's what happens with low liquidity kind of vibes and some volume getting into them. So we need to look at the obvious in the room here, what is happening. And as I say, we can talk about the altcoins who are blue on their face, but a lot of these have popped a little bit. Nothing amazing, but enough to kind of get people going, oh, hello, what's happening? And just give you a bit of an idea. If we're looking at a 4-hour time frame, for example, we are starting to see signs of recovery and potential continuation. For example, there's Solana. You've got, Litecoin leading the way. Polkadot is doing relatively all right, a good old breakout here. So there's a lot of things happening, but we've also got to remember the fact that Bitcoin is going to a new level. So yeah, we did talk about it yesterday. It's like the market has finally listened, or maybe TradingView might be watching this channel for once, but ultimately we are kind of looking a bit better than what we were. But it's very, very early. So going back to Solana, as you know, what has lit the fuse, so to speak, maybe not this really, we got the ETF, and that's kind of went live yesterday or today, so to speak, whatever time frame you're on. And it has got a decent yield on it, but I don't think this was a be-all and end-all, personally. It's not black level kind of ETF. It's just another piece in the jigsaw. But as I say, though, it's just an ETF that we have seen before, but not really like massive amounts of interest across individual ones. It's when you get the multiple ones like the BlackRock, Fidelity and stuff. So just bear in mind with that one. But as far as we need to go here with Solana, there has been a little bit of interest with this recently. And this is an older article from middle of last week. And the volume on Solana had to started to increase for once, finally. For a while, it has kind of been a little bit behind Ethereum, and it's starting to wake up a little bit. So that's interesting, and the price could well follow, and it has seemed to have followed a little bit in terms of the short term. And we talk about like enablers and Ethereum, and I covered Ethereum a lot yesterday. I covered Solana a lot yesterday as potentially the keys to the castle for altcoins to move with the meme coin situation. And finally, we've got a bit of a pump. Is a lagging indicator, but if money is rising on the back end, it's probably a good thing. And again, we have articles that have been released yesterday talking about Altseason Ignites, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and Cardano lead the charge. Now, this probably very premature in terms of an article, but as I say, we are starting to see some signs of changes in the technical structure. We're starting to see volume change here, which is very, very interesting, and obviously whale accumulation. But that doesn't mean that it's just going to be an amazing bull market. It just means that people are starting to look at things because there's probably opportunities, which if you've been following my channel, I mentioned that last week, that we are coming into, let's be honest, opportunity season where there's probably going to be people out there that will go, I'll have a punt on that, because everything in the dominant side of it is high and certain levels are low. But you've got to remember, Bitcoin dominance has not broken down anywhere near yet. I said it in yesterday's video. It needs to be the last to fall. Normally there's other things to fall first, and we will go over that in a second. But kind of talked about it before, we have to talk about the fact of the Bitcoin dominance and more importantly, the Ethereum/BTC volume on the futures is signaling for a huge move here, potentially, which could be fun. So it is obviously in the gutter, but it's actually processing 50% more volume, at the minute, which is very, very interesting. So there is a bit of a lag, but there is a bit more volume coming in. So futures volume spiked early in May, then it dropped. We're starting to see that it's starting to happen again, which could be of interest. So bear in mind, if the interest is coming in, and we've got to talk about stuff like this, the macro side, which I will cover in a minute, people might start to look at things. But as I say, a lot of this is because Bitcoin is moving. but there has been a little pump in the short term. This is a very, very laggy indicator, by the way. Don't use it as gospel. But often, if you buy at the lows, it tends to rally up at some point. But as I've said before in previous videos, the USD dominance is always the one that you need to watch first. If that starts to go down first, that's where you start getting excited. When you start seeing the total 3/BTC going up a little bit, that's where you get even more excited. When you start seeing the Bitcoin dominance fall, you get very excited. So it's kind of like a step process. It's not amazing, but I still believe, and when we look at this price action, that's the Bitcoin dominance on the 4-hour time frame. Yay! On the daily time frame, I can't really see anything. On the weekly time frame, it still looks absolutely fine. So yeah, it's still fucking miles away, let's be honest. But we also have to talk about the macro side of it, sorry, but there could be a thing that could happen that could ruin everything. We do have non-farm payroll this week. We also have the FOMC meeting at the end of the month too. And we've got to talk in line with the dollar, the 10-year yields and all that kind of stuff because this could get fun. So long story short, we have this coming up, basically later on, essentially, which could be fun. So the consensus is pretty okay, but it depends if it comes in hot or not. So obviously it's gonna land very, very soon. And yeah, you could argue a couple of things here. The thing is, if the job numbers miss or certain things happen, we could see short-term volatility and we could see strong risk-on flows, or we can get the opposite way around where they throw a spanner in the works and it goes to shit. So be mindful of it. And this as data will probably be one of the last couple of things that we're going to start getting over the line. We have to talk CPI coming up, it'll be next week or so. We've got to talk about other data, but ultimately the first one's normally, non-farm payroll. And currently the base rate of the rate cuts is we're probably more likely to not get a cut in July, which is going to be happening on the 30th. So the 30th of July is the next FOMC rate cut. More and more likely to be in September, personally. That's what we most think it's going to be. But the reason why this is important, because the crypto market is very much hinged on stuff like that, and it is affected by the likes of the dollar and the yields and obviously the stock market, the volatility there, gold and all that kind of stuff, because it is becoming a bigger, more obvious asset, especially with institutional buyers. So yeah, if the data's shit, it could go to shit too. So the main thing that I'm currently watching is USD dominance. I want that to go lower. I want to get momentum. I want to see things happen. And if you are interested in trading, feel free to follow along on my Patreon, or if you want to jump in on Blowfin and get some money back on your trades and pay less fees, there is a link below. It is a very, very good one. But there's, as I said before, there's a 3-step kind of mechanism here. This needs to go first. You need to start seeing the others and the total 2/3/BTC start to rise a little bit and show a bit of life, and then you've got to kind of look at the strength of the trend of the individual asset that you're going for. But we've been here before, haven't we, boys and girls? We have, where it's kind of looked very good, and then it melted, and then it died, and it's like, oh, alt season cancelled for a couple of months, and then back here again. We've got to get that momentum. We've got to get that follow through. Bitcoin needs to get above that all-time high, realistically, for me, to start show a bit of life to the media outlets and get a, oh, hello, you're doing well. So that could be fun. So for obvious reasons, liquidity needs to go back into the market, obviously. Obviously, again, we could talk about likes of Ethereum. This is the Ethereum.D, right? And this, you could argue, probably has bottomed here. But where does it go next? There's a long way to go here. So yeah, this is, in my opinion, the keys to the castle for all alt seasons is going to be Ethereum. And it still doesn't look amazing here. It needs to really break up and go towards some of these levels up here. That is another thing that we need to keep a massive eye on, because it could get very, very interesting. And as I said before, you got all these altcoins that are looking a bit tastier today. And I am currently long on Cardano right now on the 4-hour time frame. It's doing okay. It's broken out. Thought, bollocks, I'll go for it. Not the best trade in the world, not the best entry in the world, but ultimately every single parameter in terms of momentum has kind of triggered green. Yes, it could well turn on me, I know, but we'll see how things go. But ultimately, at the bottom of this is the fact that we have had a horrendous downward move. Are we going to recapture some levels from, previous swings, for example? And is that going to allow us to get some money, potentially? It'll be nice if it does, but we've been here before where we have these little fake outs and it kind of ruins the game a little bit. And this is why I also think as well, we talk about psychological elements and market fatigue and why cryptocurrency channels are dying and why people are getting wrecked and destroyed, is because we tend to get a lot of fake outs and a lot of wreck and ruin. it's a pain in the ass. So yeah, this week has given us a little bit of a sniff of an alt season. It's now about patience levels and making sure we're not FOMOing in at the top wicks, essentially. But realistically, I've said this before, and I hope you all listen. If you are here right now today and we are starting to see a run, you will catch most of it. Let's be honest here. Because there's a lot of people that will jump into these moves very, very late. And that's the beauty of cryptocurrency. A lot of people do return. It's crazy. So yeah, hit that like button if you enjoyed this content, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, watch this video from yesterday. Might help you a bit more.